Hello and welcome to a very hot episode of Below the Gavel. I'm Lower Merion Board of Commissioners Vice President Andy Gavrin, and this month I'm joined by Lower Merion's Chief of Fire Department, Jimmy McCoy. Hopefully this interview won't flame out before we get to the good stuff. Thanks for joining me on Beside the Gavel, Jimmy.
Thank you for welcoming me, Commissioner.
Yeah, of course, and I know you turned down a request for to be on Public Works Pipeline, which I think is a very good idea. If you're going to start at LMTV, you start at the top. Don't go for those lower rated shows.
I always follow my bosses.
So it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So you were recently appointed as the Chief of the Fire Department. You've been with Lower Merion for quite some time now. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience here, how long you've been here, what it's been like?
Sure. I started back in a volunteer in 1985.
Okay.
Merion Fire Company of Ardmore was my first, which I still volunteer there. I went, met with their staff, had an interview, fell in love with the place, and fell in love with the fire service. So I joined there in 85, moved back home in 89 before I got married, so I lived in my parents' house in Ballackinwood, so I joined Ballackinwood also at the same time. So I was volunteering on both Ardmore and Ballackinwood until I moved to Wynwood when I went back to Ardmore full time. And then I've been with Ardmore ever since. I became part of the Township staff in 2005. Chief Harry Knorr was getting ready to retire. He reached out for a job opportunity. I thought about it, talked it over with my family, said it'd be a great opportunity. Let me go try it. So in 1985, I became a Deputy Fire Marshal and did that up until last March when Chief McCoy decided he wanted to retire. He moved to Harrisburg and became the State Fire Commissioner, and I jumped in to take his acting role and stayed there until last month when they appointed me Chief of Department. Yeah,
you were acting for a while, and you were acting so well that we said we gotta keep this guy around. So
it's a great opportunity. Yeah. I have some great support through my team in the office, as well as the 7 fire chiefs of the companies. We've all got together, decided where we want to go, how we want to move the department forward, and it's been actually an easy transition. Yeah. I thought maybe some of the work might be overwhelming, but I think with the people that are helping me to do this, it's fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you said you still volunteer?
I do. I actually volunteer, and it's pretty different. So I live in Havertown, right across the border, and I volunteer with my Havertown community also. So I'm volunteering at Oakmont Fire Company, which I've been doing that for the last 7 years. Yeah, and like I have a few extra hours a day to give up time to do that. But I do that, and I still volunteer in Ardmore. I come, I'll drive the trucks for them occasionally. Depending on the scope of the fire, I'll go direct and use my Lower Merion job. But if they have a fire alarm or they have an event that they need a truck out, I'll go and I'll drive the second truck for them.
Gotcha.
So it works out well, and it's still fun. It's still the little boy in you wants to go and get on a red truck and go have fun.
So is it hard to, when you're volunteering, to not just start assuming control?
No, and that's the one thing I really enjoy when I go to Oakmont. I'm just a fireman. I go there, I get on the truck, I'll go. I get to crawl down a hallway once in a while and put a fire out.
Yeah.
I did that last year did that twice last year. Just happened to be on the first truck when we pull up and we have a fire in one in Hartford and one in the middle of Havertown. We just happened to be on the hose line, and the 18-year-old boy comes out of you when you're 58 and you still have fun, but an hour later your body's hurting and sort of like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that happens to me when I play softball, and that's not even even close to it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, when I still go to firegrounds, even if I'm not the chief, there's amount of leadership that you have that people look like, Jimmy, can you help me with this? Help me with that.
Yeah,
and it works both sides. So it's a fun transition.
Gotcha. So when you're as chief, do you still go to fires, or how does that work?
So in our department, where I go to, anytime we have a report of a building fire in the township, we'll go. And that's we meaning us and the deputy fire marshals along with the companies. Okay. We also go to different events, a hazmat event, something involved in one of our township facilities will go, but somebody will have better insider keys to it, as well as major incidents, trains or an airplane incident or an aviation incident, or even we really go and we worry about the sprinkler alarms. So sprinklers are the life safety inside of a building, the water. So if we get an issue with that, we want to make sure there's follow-up on our end. So somebody from our office always goes on an alarm like that to make sure the system's fully operational.
Okay, got it. So you mentioned that you took over from Chaz McGarvey. He was here for a while as chief. What did you learn from Chaz, working with him?
Chaz was a great boss. He, so when I was hired in 2005, Chaz became chief of the department then. So then I became a deputy fire marshal. And then starting in that role, he let me take over the construction side. So I had a great great learning experience going through and doing all the construction world.
Okay.
But one thing Chaz really taught was preparation, dedication. Prepare. Make sure you're ready for the smallest event or the biggest event.
So speaking of that, I had heard rumors about something with the Pope visiting, and preparation being a key part of that.
Oh, absolutely. So when the Pope came here in 6-7 years ago, I believe, I forget the date, the fire department put a plan together. The fire department being Chief McCoy.
Okay.
He put together an incident response plan. He put together how we were going to man the seminary for those 36 hours while the Pope was there. So we put together a response plan. We put firefighters on scene, living in dorms, set up meals, and set up an internal work plan. We had a hazmat response. We had a fire response. And during the event, when the Pope was here, we had a fire in the building. We had a fire, 2 o'clock in the morning. We are sitting around, and the alarm goes off. And the fire alarm says, smoke detector, elevator room. Okay. So we go down the hall to the elevator, myself and my partner, and accompanied by the Swiss Guard. And we go down and we start looking around, and we can't find anything. And we're like, okay, let's go upstairs. And that was where the Pope was sleeping.
Okay.
We went up, and all of a sudden, making our way up the steps, somebody calls on the radio, we've got a fire in the kitchen in the elevator. So if you know the seminary, it's about a 6-mile walk from one end to another.
Right.
Because it's so large. So we go running from the one end of the seminary now to get into the middle of the complex.
Okay.
At the same time, when the alarm went off, we had the firefighters notified. They got dressed, jumped in their trucks, and we're heading over to the incident. When I'm coming up the hallway, running into the director of security, his eyes are the size of the sun, screaming. There's a fire. There's a fire in the kitchen coming out of the elevator shaft. So as we get there, the trucks pull up. We go into work. We have a hose line deployed through the cafeteria into the kitchen. We put the fire out, secure the power. It goes back to preparation. Chief McCoy's plan was to have people there. We secured the electric, put the fire out, cleared the smoke out. As the Pope slept upstairs in the second floor, never knew a thing about it.
Thank goodness for that. Did you ever get to meet the Pope during that?
We did, actually. So another fun little Pope story is, so we wound up that afternoon, the Swiss Guard was looking for their box of donuts for the ride back to Rome that night.
Okay.
The caterer forgot. So I picked up the phone. I said, I'll have this here in 10 minutes. Made a phone call to a local fire chief who ran across the street to a Dunkin' Donuts. He got 3 boxes of donuts, met me at a predetermined spot right on the seminary. We went downstairs, ran through the seminary's catacombs, back upstairs, and met up with the Swiss Guard. And the caterer puts his hands out. Oh, thank you. We'll hand him over. I'm like, no.
Absolutely not.
The fire department saved you again. The fire department wants credit. So the fire department is now going to take care of the donuts. So we gave the donuts to the Swiss Guard. Swiss Guard goes, we'll get you to meet the Holy Father later. So at the last part of the evening, when he left to go to Philadelphia for his final Mass, he came down and we were able to meet with him, shake his hand, get some pictures, get a group picture, which I then turned into a great picture for my mom.
Oh,
for a great Christmas present.
I assume you're her favorite now. After.
Well, I'm not sure about the favorite, but at least in the top 4 out of 4 kids. And then, again, experience. I mean, you get to meet, you meet somebody like that. I mean, you meet a president, you meet somebody else. When you meet somebody on his stature, it's just something resonates through your body. And then it was like a 36 high. I mean, nobody slept for the day and a half while we were there.
Right.
We all worked. We all made sure he was taken care of. And it goes back to the preparation of Chief McCoy, and you got to be ready 24/7.
Yeah.
Which is a true testament to what he did.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
See, kids, you like that dad joke? Holy and smokes in the same one. Sorry. No, I mean, it really does talk about preparation, right? And had you not been prepared, who knows what that incident would have looked like.
You would have playing catch up. All of a sudden, you would have to try and figure out logistics in the building, how to get around. When the Holy Father came to the time, he was a dignitary similar to as a president. So he was given every latitude, every transportation mode that a president would have. So his building was locked down by the Secret Service and the Swiss Guard. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't go anywhere unless you had credentials and had escorted by the teams.
So it would have been hard to even get a fire truck in, like, to deal with that.
It was. So if you remember how the seminary was locked down, the gates were to the front, everything else around the perimeter was locked. So when the fire call came in, we had our 3 trucks inside, which was great, but they locked the seminary gates out front. So now our resources are sitting outside on Wynwood Road trying to get in, and they're like, nothing happens until we get clearance from our people. So if that was the case and we had to come from the outside, we would have been 20 minutes behind the ball, not be able to go inside, control the incident, and to no one's upstairs, he'd be still sound asleep, and no one know about it. So it was it was just a very different time. But things that you don't think about when you start planning events like this. But Chief McGarvey thought about it, and we were good.
And preparation, I bet, whether it's the biggest event like this or smallest, down to the smallest detail is so important.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely. And not only that event, but any other event that we do, he always had everything laid out. And that's something I just try and take with me now and make sure we're there.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And before we break, you've completely thrown off all my questions because this Pope story is an amazing story. But we have another segment. We'll talk more about the fire service. Do you ever find out what his favorite donut was?
I don't know, but we gave him about 24 varieties, so whatever was in the box.
Gotcha. Well, we'll take a break now. For Melissa and everyone else watching at home, we will be right back after these commercials for flaming hot Cheetos, some hot sauce, and retractable hoses. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Beside the Gavel. We're still here with Lower Merion's Chief of Fire Department, Jimmy McCoy, and we'll jump back into it. So, Jimmy, we have a bit of a unique fire service here. We have a centralized department, and then we also have 7 firehouses. How does that work? Can you talk about how do we interact with each other and what that structure is like?
Sure. So we have 7 volunteer fire companies in the Township of Lower Merion. That includes Narberth Borough.
Okay.
So they cover the 26 square miles of the township. They take care of our daily operations. They respond to fire calls, events. But we have a component, which is what I'm a part of, and the chief of the fire department. Component in the chief of the fire department office is, along with our deputy fire marshals.
Okay.
And we take care of fire prevention, code enforcement. We take care of fire investigation. So we're kind of the everyday administrative side until the page goes off, and then we become part of the operations side. So we're kind of mixed. So we will deal with the phone calls coming in from alarm companies. We will deal with construction side. Any new construction project in township's going to start, there's a fire department component to that. We go and we'll sit with the builders. We'll go through land development, which is the beginning of the process, all the way up until the final testing. So the fire department has a part of that. So that's a part of what our guys do in the office.
Okay.
And then we'll do, on the fire side, we'll go to the fire ground. Sometimes we're crawling down hallways, putting fires out side by side with the volunteers and the career guys in the station.
Okay.
And then we do the fire investigation at the end. So as I said, each of our 7 stations are made up a component of volunteers and career firefighters. So each station has 3 career firefighters, with the exception of Narberth, they have 2.
Okay.
So these career firefighters work during the day, Monday to Friday, 2 on during the day and 1 at nighttime, and then 1 on the weekend. And their duties are to drive the trucks. Depending on manpower during the day, they're firefighting also.
Okay.
And then they're just a part of each fire company themselves. They work for each fire station. In conjunction, then they're part of Lower Merion Fire Department at the end.
Okay.
So when we go to a fire call, it could be a house fire. It'll be normally all 7 companies from the township will go to that event. Normally, who's ever home community that is, they'll send their full department, and then the next company will send their full department, and then we'll have a truck from each of the other companies to come and bring a piece of equipment, and more importantly, manpower. So
are they coordinating that? Like, oh, we're bringing this, or we're bringing that, or how does that?
So that's all set up through a operational plan that we have through dispatch.
Okay.
So when we give a specific address, we can use the township building, for example. So if there was a fire in the township building, it would be first due, which would be Ardmore's Fire Company. Second due was Bryn Mawr. So they would come, and then each 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th has a specific piece of equipment that they send. A part of that's already downloaded in the system and done.
Gotcha.
So they know what to bring.
Got it.
And then when they arrive, they know what their duty are. So the first engine, the first ladder has the duty. The second engine, the second ladder has a duty.
Okay.
The 3rd engine shows up, they have a duty, and so forth down the line.
Got it.
And then we have the chiefs who respond to the event. So one thing we've done lately, which has been a great asset, is the 7 chiefs now respond on all building fires. No matter where it is in the township, they come.
Okay.
And they are our leadership. They are the 7 leaders, along with myself, that will come and manage the incident. They will take anywhere from an operation role to run the incident, to a manpower role, to a water supply role, or even some of them will take a inside role. But we try and save the inside role for the younger officers, deputy officers that are going to run the crews.
Okay.
So we're trying to take the 7 leaders who have the most experience and make them the management of the fireground. And it's working real well.
Great. So if this is a really dumb question, but I'll ask it rather than having my viewers ask it. If you live in Ardmore, Bryn Mawr, or wherever you live, you're not calling your local fire. Like, you don't need to know who to call. You're just calling 911 if you have a fire.
That is correct. You pick up the phone at 911. Now, for communities that live around the border, if you pick up your cell and call 911, you may get bumped to a Philadelphia tower or Delaware County tower. So they maybe ask you, where do you live, or what street do you live in? And all they're doing is trying to gather information, because they may be a Delaware County dispatcher that needs to transfer to Montgomery County dispatcher.
Gotcha.
Or Philadelphia. So landline, most of the time, if you pick up your landline and dial 911, which nobody has them anymore. So the cell phone's going to be grabbed what each tower is. So I just had a resident ask me a couple days ago why somebody in Delaware County answered the phone. I said, well, here's your demographic. It's whatever tower's closest, it grabs your call.
Interesting. So it's a good idea. Hey, I'm calling from Montgomery County, like off the bat, so they know where you're
absolutely.
calling.
I mean, I think when you call, the dispatcher has like 6 questions to answer right away. And they're going to ask you your name, the incident, what's going on, where you live. And I would say make sure you tell them you're in Montgomery County.
Right.
So that'll help them then start the transfer to Montgomery County and make the process even speedier.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. One other thing you mentioned was the administrative role and kind of the fire alarms role. And my colleague Dan Bernheim would kill me, would light me on fire if I didn't talk about false alarms.
Oh,
Tell me a little bit about the problem and what residents can do, if anything, or business owners can do, if anything, about this.
So we started a campaign this year to try and put more public awareness out there for fire alarms. We live in a community where majority of our houses have fire alarm systems. It's the houses we live in, the business community we have in. Homes that have sprinklers, businesses that have sprinklers are required to have a fire alarm, because it's required to dial out and tell us.
Okay.
So in the course of that, we need to teach our residents how to cook. Cooking is probably our #1 false fire alarm, next to contractors setting alarms off during the day.
Okay.
So how do we fix this? So we've done a public education campaign where we've sent out literature to all the residents. If you have contractors working in your house, please put your fire alarm on test. What that's going to do is put it on test. If the contractor sets it off with dust and dirt, it's not going to call the fire department. We've also given them tips on how to cover smoke detectors during these times.
Gotcha.
For residents, we ask them, if you're cooking, make sure you have a window open or cross ventilation. Make sure your hood's on. Don't leave your kitchen unattended when you're cooking.
Yeah.
Accidents will happen. So public education is probably our #1 we're trying to do. We still have, out of our last year we ran almost 2,600 calls, half were fire alarm calls.
Wow.
And half those fire alarm calls, probably 49% were false alarm. One may have been something else. Now, false fire alarms, it's kind of how do you categorize that? But somebody who's cooking and burning dinner puts smoke in the atmosphere. The fire alarm senses smoke, it goes off. It did what it was supposed to do. But carelessly, we were the ones that caused that to happen. It wasn't like there was a fire in the house. We carelessly caused the smoke.
Right.
We didn't put the proper fan on it when we're cooking, things like that. But things like that, we're trying. It's a burden on our firefighters.
Sure.
But going forward, hopefully public education, shows like this. We've done mailers through the Township e-newsletter. We've sent every contractor a bulletin point letter the first of the year. And when they go and renew their license, they're going to get this letter every year. It's kind of just give them tips for the day. Please, if you're working in the house, just take these 2 seconds to make sure it goes.
Yeah, no, and it's a good thing you're talking about this on the #1 rated show on LMTV, not on, like, I don't know, Public Works Pipeline that nobody watches. It's also a good thing that my mom doesn't live in the township, because instead of having 2,600 calls, you probably have 3,600 with the way she cooks. Sorry, Mom. I love you, but. Anyway, before we run out of time, I want to talk about, you mentioned that we have volunteer fire companies. That's unique, that we use volunteer firefighters. tell us a little bit about that, how people can get involved. Should they get involved as a volunteer firefighter?
So volunteer firefighters are the backbone of Lower Merion Fire Department. They probably number over 200 volunteers we have over the 7 companies. They run daily operations. There's a great website called Join Lower Merion, Join LMFD.
Okay.
You can go on that, you can enter your name, you can enter your address, and then it'll be sent to the CERT Recruitment and Retention Committee, who then will pick the name and contact you. And that's not only just for firefighters. If you want to join and help the board, if you got backgrounds in finance, administration, planning, they're always looking for people to help on their board. You can sign up the same way. Go on there, join LMFD, put in your name, put in your phone number, contact information, and then you can reach out and help you that way. But yeah, any way you want to join. I mean, being a volunteer firefighter is great. It's great for your community. I always say it when I was doing my high school presentations to kids. It's a great resume builder. It's great for when you're going to college. You're part of an organization. It's your first fraternity. It's your first sorority. You get to meet, and you're working with anybody from age 16 to 60.
Yeah.
So it teaches the next generation interaction with adults. And it's a great way to help and be part of your community.
No doubt, no doubt. And when we have volunteer fighters, they're men, women, older, younger, all walks of life. I mean,
absolutely. Right? I mean, the rules, you have to be 16 to join.
Okay.
Some have cadet programs of 14, which are really just young kids that come to the firehouse. They can't go in the trucks. They can't perform anything. But at 16, you can go. You can start your training.
Okay.
The state has just changed some guidelines, so at 17 you're now to start doing some inside fire training. Before it was 18. But at 16, 18, it helps you build the fundamentals of the fire service. Yeah. So you can start that program. So when you hit that magic number 18, you can put that air pack on, you can start going inside and being part of the team.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't have to say, I want to do this as a career someday. Volunteer, you're learning teamwork, you're learning response, administrate, like all of these great skills.
It's great. I mean, I started this as a volunteer, and for the first 20 years I volunteered. I had my own family business. And then at age 40, in a mid-change the life crisis, jumped in, I started a new career. But no, we have many people. We have business owners. We have teachers. We have doctors. We have nurses. We have all sorts of individuals that have a full-time job somewhere else, but give and become firemen.
That's great. So if you can't volunteer for whatever reason, time, ability, whatever that reason is, but you still want to support our fire companies, are there other ways to donate to our fire companies or support them? Or
I think every once a year each fire company sends out a fund drive notice. It kind of gives a background of who they are, what they're doing, and helps solicit some funds to help cover the cost for the year. Township helps with funding during the course of the year, but there's still building needs. There's utilities, there are all sorts of other things. So they want to try and raise a few extra dollars to help support their needs. So each company should do that. You can go on even Lower Merion Township website. If you go in and type in your address, it'll give you which ward you're in, which I think it'll give you which fire company you're in also. And then you can reach out to them and make a donation that way.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I mean, our number one goal is keeping the residents safe. Right, we want to make this town vibrant and wonderful, but the first step is keeping it safe. And thanks to you and our volunteer firefighter companies and all of the individuals that make that up, really, everyone in Lower Merion owes a debt of gratitude to the brave people, in our companies.
We're very lucky. We have over 200 dedicated men and women who will drop a dime. They'll leave their family dinner. They'll leave a party. The pager goes off, they jump in the truck and they'll go. And they'll go to somebody's worst day they're having in their life, or there's somebody who burnt their dinner that needs help get the smoke out of the house. And they'll do that. And we're very fortunate. And we're very fortunate that each of the fire companies have dedicated leadership that helps us each day.
Definitely.
So, we're very fortunate in Township.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I could do this all day. Unfortunately, I have the goons behind the camera in my ear telling me time to wrap it up because they only give me 22 minutes, even though they should give me a lot longer. But anyway, we got through an entire show without even talking about the blasting through the rock for the new middle school and all the chaos that caused. I guess we didn't. Anyway, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Beside the Gavel. And for everyone watching, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next month.